Hey folks, it's Joe. I'm really excited to bring you a conversation with one of my favorite drummers of all time, Ryan Rapsys. We're going to record a short bonus follow-up episode, so if you have any questions for Ryan, email us at thetrapset@gmail.com.
The Trap Set will always be available for free, but we rely on donations from our listeners. Please visit our website at thetrapset.net and click donate. Subscribe to our show on iTunes, and if you enjoy what you hear, give us a review.
This is Joe Wong. Welcome to the Trap Set, where each week we explore the lives of drummers. I want to play something for you. You're hearing Island I'd Love to Live On by Euphone, featuring my guest, Ryan Rapsys, on drums. Ryan first appeared on the experimental Chicago rock scene in the early 90s and distinguished himself not only as one of that city's leading drummers, but as one of the greatest of his generation. He possesses a perfect swinging groove, jaw-dropping technique, and most importantly, a startlingly unique creative voice. A voice honed in such bands as Gage, Heroic Doses, Joan of Arc, and his sometimes solo project, Euphone. After enduring personal tragedy, Ryan lost his way and fell on dark times. He still has yet to achieve the commercial success befitting someone of his monumental talent. Now healthy and back on a productive path, there's every reason to hope he gets the recognition he deserves. And now our conversation with Ryan Rapsys.
I came out of the womb with drumsticks in my hand. I mean, I guess I started playing when I was around 4 years old. And I had to audition for my parents because they weren't sure that I was serious about wanting to play drums. And if I wasn't serious about playing drums, the way my family worked was that you didn't even get to do what you wanted to do unless you could prove to them that you were going to be serious about it beforehand. So I auditioned Rush's 2112 on some buckets that I had received, which were actually buckets that were part of Bozo's Circus, the grand prize game, which was my favorite game to watch on television, which is where you take a ping pong ball and you try and get it in bucket number 1, and if you get it in bucket number 1, you win a prize, and you get it in bucket number 6, you win $50 and a Schwinn bicycle. So I did audition for them, and they got me a drum kit the very next day.
And how old were you when you did that?
Probably between 4 and 5. Between 4 and 5 years old, which is crazy. So that's like around 78, 79.
Would you say that you have a strong innate ability for drumming, or was it a lot of hard work, or the combination of the two?
I think, honestly, I was like really blessed. I think it's an innate ability that I didn't have to really work at too hard, but I had to nurture it, you know. It was there. And I feel like, because I've never taken a lesson of any kind in my life. It's just all been, I think I was just blessed with a really good ear. And with music, but with drumming in particular, a lot of it seems to be imitating, you know. All music is nowadays is just like, is like great imitation skills. So I could just hear something and repeat it, you know.
Was there anything else that you ever wanted to do?
No. Well, that's not true. If I couldn't play drums, I wanted to get into like construction. Like where I was growing up were all these, the area that we were in was a newly developed sort of like subdivision, and all around us were other subdivisions that were a little bit behind the one that we were like, they were digging, and they were constantly, making foundations for new homes and developing neighborhoods. And I was really fascinated by all the construction vehicles and trucks and like all the huge yellow like gigantic construction vehicles. So I thought I wanted to drive one of those for a while, but I don't know. I always like being around noise. That's my thing.
Your folks made you prove yourself
Yeah.
before you got a drum set.
Oh yeah.
Were they relatively intense people?
Yeah, I'd say that they kind of were. I mean, intense. I thought that they were intense. Maybe others not so much, but like I saw this intensity in them, but it was always very reserved and very quiet. And I noticed that my grandparents on both sides were the same way, like extremely intense people, but you wouldn't ever just be able to sit with them for 5 minutes and realize this. Like it was a really, really quiet, held in intensity, for better or for worse.
Was it? Well, yeah, you should be the greatest.
Exactly.
That kind of a thing?
Exactly. Exactly.
Did you internalize a lot of that? I mean, do you put a lot of pressure on yourself?
I did then, but then I started to see that, and I don't know if it was just from watching other people in my family or other people just maybe at school, that it wasn't necessarily always good to put too much pressure on yourself. I think there's a certain amount you need to put on yourself, but there also is like letting loose and taking a huge deep breath, where I think it's better almost to not put as much pressure on yourself. But there is a point that you need to get to where you need to work yourself extremely hard.
What was your routine as a kid? I mean, you got drums before you were even in school. What did you do?
Well, I'll tell you what, I didn't do any schoolwork. I know that. It was really difficult for me to focus on anything but drums for like my first like handful of years of schooling, which I think my parents look back on as like, oh, maybe we let him get started on this a little bit too early because now he can't focus on anything else. But that's just kind of the way I've always been as a person. Like if I'm really, really into something, there is nothing else that can distract me, even when it's something that should be distracting me,
Well, what else have you gotten into?
I was extremely into skateboarding. And it's going to sound hilarious, but I was like extremely into breakdancing at the time.
Oh, wow.
But
can you still dance?
Yeah, a little bit.
Do you enjoy dancing?
Yeah. As you know, I'm like 6'6", so I look a little bit ridiculous when I get on like the dance floor in most places. But
lots of the best early drummers especially were great dancers, like great tap dancers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even guys like Steve Gadd was a great tap dancer as a kid.
I sort of wish that I'd, not that it's too late, but I sort of wish that I'd gotten into like things like ballet or, boxing or something like that. Like something
rhythmic
that requires, but also like grace too.
Yeah.
Which is one area that I've always kind of wanted to develop a little bit more. I mean, I think I have the rhythm part somewhat down, but the grace part I think is something that I need to explore something else to develop.
What did you picture yourself doing at that point? Did you picture yourself becoming Neil Peart?
I pictured myself just, I didn't have a specific drummer or band as a model for what I wanted to attain, but I just thought that I could just be the best at this thing, And to me, it was less about, at 7, 8, 9 years old, I wasn't even thinking about bands. I was probably just thinking about ability.
Did you ever have an opportunity to take lessons and turn it down?
Yeah, I turned it down time and time again. I had taken some bass lessons for some reason, like really, really early on, and I just decided that like, unless you had an extremely awesome teacher, that was where it began and ended for me. If it didn't seem like someone that I could click with, or if it seemed like someone who didn't really care about teaching so much, and it was just like this was their job, and like here's your homework, and come back next week knowing it, or I'm going to be a little bit upset with you. It's just like that wasn't the way that I felt like I could learn. I felt like I had to learn, and drums in particular. I just didn't come across anyone that like, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I just didn't think that any of the teachers that I had met like were any better than myself.
Did you feel like none of them were as passionate as yourself?
Yeah,
was that what it was?
I didn't think they were as passionate.
I think that sometimes people lose their passion for something when they go into teaching.
Yeah, I think so too.
That's a danger. I mean, there are some people that are amazing teachers,
Mm-hmm.
and that's their calling.
Yeah.
But I think it's rare.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Have you ever taught other people how to play?
I've tried to, but I feel my problem with trying to teach other people is that like drumming it feels so natural to me.
It's like trying to teach somebody else how to walk or something.
That if like, how can you not, what do you mean you don't understand like this grip or this placement or how hard or not hard to hit? Like it seems like it comes so natural to me that it seems really hard to impart that onto someone else unless they already have somewhat of a foundation for it. But yeah, I've tried to teach some people and I've seen progress, but made with them, but it's difficult. I mean, I envy people that can teach it really well.
Let's talk about Gage for
Sure.
a minute. That was your first official band that had
Yeah.
releases, and you toured a little bit with that band too.
Mm-hmm.
How did you meet those guys?
Met those guys, I guess, probably from attending the same punk rock shows at different places throughout like metropolitan Chicago area and in Chicago. And probably we're sitting around after a show one night talking about bands that we liked, and it was like, oh, you like Fugazi? I love Fugazi. Oh, you play drums? Like, okay. And you like Fugazi? Do you kind of like playing the drums like that guy? And I was like, oh my God, yeah, I love it. So that probably started through our mutual love of like Discord records and, and all the bands.
Did you discover Discord through skateboarding circles?
Yes.
Okay.
Most definitely.
Yeah, and I feel like around that time there was definitely kind of like a developing connection between the music that was coming out of Chicago and what was happening in DC with like a second wave of Discord bands.
Yeah, yeah. Strangely, but I guess that's just what happens when, like DC seemed like this far off, mysterious place to us where like, oh God, like anything could happen. And like it was just interesting in the way that they were melding elements of like rock and things like Sabbath, but also with like stuff like Lee Perry and kind of reggae oriented stuff too. So that was really fascinating to me. Yeah, without a doubt, one of the best.
You're in junior college. Mm-hmm. You were not a very good student in high school.
Nope.
And you probably at this point didn't know many people that had been successful financially in music. Like you weren't like, there wasn't someone that you could look to that was like, oh, if you do this and this, then maybe you have a better chance or something.
Well, this leads up to the crossroads I was talking about. Junior college. All right. Why am I in junior college? Because I'm a lousy student. Gage had just broken up. I'd quit Gage, so I guess I sort of broke the band up.
Why did you quit?
Because I didn't care for that direction of music anymore. I was getting a little bit more into jazz, and I was getting more into music that was less angular and atonal, less distorted, had more space, had more melody. And that led me kind of like down, like a sort of more interested in jazz, like at that point. But I also envy jazz drummers so much, and that style seems so hard to do unless
if you're not completely dedicated to it, you're not going to do it.
Exactly, which I realized soon into, but I couldn't help myself from exploring.
Were you in touch with the jazz stuff that was happening in Chicago? Like, did you know Hamid and stuff?
No, I mean, this would still be a little bit before my getting into Chicago, but as soon as I got into Chicago, was familiar with Hamid and the Bop Shop, which was a great place to go and see free jazz a couple nights a week in Chicago. Even before, this would still be before, but I was also still getting into like Tortoise and those groups. Like as I was coming into Chicago, right around this time that I was in junior college would be my introduction to that sort of stuff, the Sea and Cake, Tortoise, a little bit before Isotope, but we're all like, oh, Bitches Brew, like, this record is the shit, you got to check it out. But at this point, I'm in junior college. I don't know if I want to try and really be a musician, because it's starting to hit me that it is like a really difficult thing to make a career out of. What's the easiest thing I could take in school? Oh, criminal justice, because I just want to get this degree and get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
You know? I didn't want to be a cop. I just wanted like the easy.
Well, what did you think
road.
would happen when you got a criminal justice degree and you didn't want to be a cop?
Well, I would get the degree, and then I could go to Columbia College downtown, which is where I wanted to start getting into audio.
Right. Okay.
So just any way to get myself out of College of DuPage and downtown, closer to the music that I wanted to be getting closer to, and getting into audio engineering. So I did it. I got this degree in criminal justice, and then got the hell out of Glen Ellen and went down to Chicago and started trying to meet as many people as possible, which is where I met the Lonesome Organist.
Yeah.
And where I met all the folks in Tortoise, and then Billy Dolan, guitar player, whom I eventually started playing in Heroic Doses with.
Today's episode of The Trap Set is brought to you in part by our good friends at Revival Drum Shop. Revival is community-oriented, and they feature a one-of-a-kind collection of vintage and handmade custom drums, eclectic percussion, lessons, and rentals. They're truly one of the great drum shops of the world, and you can check them out the next time you're in Portland, Oregon, or online at revivaldrumshop.com. You studied audio engineering there. Mm-hmm. Did you finish school?
Yeah, I did.
So you have a degree.
I have a degree.
How was your confidence at the time?
Pretty
as a musician?
High at that point. Pretty high at that point, because I will have already, the whole gauge dissolving kind of left a bad taste in my mouth about playing with bands per se, which is kind of...
In the sense that you need each other when you're in a band?
In the sense that you need each other, but also in the sense that maybe you just can't, I couldn't relate to other people at that time very well. And I think it was because I was transitioning from this rock and roll, 2 guitars, bass, drums, vocals thing into something that I guess would be arguably more experimental sounding, and textures and ambience and space and all these things that I longed for from a band that I wasn't getting. I could do myself, in experimentation. And I started smoking pot, things like that. Got into smoking weed. Or
you got
something.
real into it for a while.
Yeah.
Are you still into it?
I mean, a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, but not. I feel like it's not. It was a tool. It's always been just kind of a tool for me. It's I've never my approach to drugs in general is more of less of a party oriented thing, and more of a what could I get out of the time I'm going to be spending myself with this kind of experimentation. It felt
Is it because it's you get into a zone where it's this isn't enough, I need more?
Maybe for some people. I mean,
no, I'm asking for you. Why do you need a tool?
Well, that's the thing. You don't need a tool, but it doesn't hurt sometimes.
No.
It definitely, I felt with smoking weed, at least, it didn't hurt to have something that helped close off everything else around me, so I could just think about what I was doing and get really into listening to what I was hearing, And I felt that's what weed kind of did, for me personally. Everyone probably has their own philosophies about it, but yeah, I'm into it still, but not as hardcore as I used to be. Yeah.
When did the idea for Euphone come about?
Probably right around then when Gage had dissolved, and I'd moved into the city, and I had a place that I could play music, isolated on my own at any hour. And
that's hard to do nowadays.
Extremely hard to do nowadays, yes. But I was also getting interested in learning other instruments. Not just drums. I was getting more interested in learning keys and learning guitar and bass. having my own space that I could just go to at any hour and just, not have to worry about who's hearing me, like try and learn how to play like another instrument. It really, really helped me. I think it made me a better drummer, made me a better listener, and opened up just a lot of different like portals to ideas that I had never really given much thought to before,
This episode of The Trap Set is brought to you in part by Colectivo Coffee. Handmade coffee since 1993. Check them out online at colectivo.com.
Are you happy with where you are in your life right now?
Yeah, reasonably happy, with the exception that, I left Los Angeles. It'll be 2 years this month to move to Asheville with a group that I was playing with, and the group dissolved in like February, March. And I'm not too happy about that because I really liked living here, and I didn't leave with this group to go somewhere else to play because I didn't like living here. I left with the group because I believed the group had something special, and I hate when my like senses about those sorts of things wind up like coming back and like biting me in the ass, or that I'm wrong because it.
Were you wrong?
I was wrong.
It wasn't special? I mean, or was it special it was special, but it just
special.
Wasn't meant to last.
Exactly.
But you got to take those chances, right?
You have to take those chances.
So do you want to move back here?
I want to spend a little bit of time, like at least like the remainder of the summer and maybe into the winter where I am, because I don't like the idea of when something falls apart, you leave that place.
Right.
I think it's way better to assess what's happened. Not too much, not obsess over it, but just assess what's happened. Think about what you want to change within, like yourself and your approach and everything, and then see where that might take you. So I'm fixed to stay where I am for right now, but I could see coming back here. I could see going to New York.
Let's get back to trajectory. Mm-hmm. You alluded to this before, but your mom passed away when you were in your 20s.
Mm-hmm. Early 20s, yeah.
And you were really close with your mom.
Oh, yeah.
And you must have just been totally devastated.
Yeah, totally devastated. Person I was closest with in my entire life, for sure.
What happened?
Shaped me musically. She developed stomach cancer, and passed about a year, almost exactly a year to the day of diagnosis. Spent every single day with her while she was ill, like took her to the majority of her like chemo and radiation appointments. Never had lost anyone before that was that close to me, but also learned a lot about what it is, what it's like to lose someone, and like the preparations that you have to make and the things that you talk about with those people and stuff like that. It's huge.
Do you feel like you were able to get everything out on the table and say everything you needed to say?
Yeah.
That's a gift.
That's a huge gift right there, for sure. It was big. And
did it bring you closer to your family?
It did, but it was also a strange time in the sense that, I was blossoming into this adult that just like wanted to go everywhere and like explore everything and get out of my like little like, family zone and stuff like that. So we did all kind of like split off into different directions, and all of us kind of dealt with my mom's passing in different ways. But I wouldn't say it made us drift apart, but it's hard to say that it made us closer too. It kind of just set everyone on a course, and everyone's kind of been like on that same course like ever since. But we're all still very close with my dad. Talk to him on a weekly basis, talk to my brother on a weekly, sometimes more than that basis. So in that sense, we're pretty close, but I haven't visited Chicago much since I moved away.
think the last time that we hung out, you were mentioning like, I have stuff there in storage, but I just don't want to go there because it was a dark time.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the last, I saw you probably shortly after your mom passed away. And then I hadn't seen you in a while, and your music kind of started to take on a different kind of darker tone. And I saw you in Chicago. I think you were working at the Bottle at the time.
Probably the Rainbow.
Or the Rainbow. So this was some years later, and you'd seemed changed. And then when I ran into you, like a few years after that, when I first came out to LA, you explained that it was because you were on heroin at the time.
Yes.
How did that habit start?
Well, I just hit a musical point in Chicago where I couldn't seem to find anyone that I could click with creatively. The reason I ever even started playing solo was because I would vacillate between like, it's really fun to play with people. Oh wait, it's not fun to play with people. It's way more fun to just play by myself. Ultimately, always coming back to how great it is to play with people, like how great it is to collaborate, how great it is, how much better I am as a musician when I have other people to bounce ideas off of, to react to, if you will. And I couldn't find that anymore in Chicago, and I was getting really depressed. And I was also just getting depressed about the idea of like, all right, well, I'm getting into my like 30s here now, and like maybe music isn't like, maybe I should just play music for fun on the side, and I should think about getting into another career. So I wound up basically stopping working at night at bars, stopping playing as much music, and I got like a sort of straight job at this art handling company in Chicago. And a lot of people at that company were in sort of a similar position to myself. Like I found myself surrounded frustrated artists.
Yeah.
Surrounded by them.
Uh-oh.
I know it's a recipe for disaster, especially if you're in such a bad place that like you'll almost say yes to anything that could make you feel better, that you think could, make you feel better. Obviously falsely, but and I decided to like try a few things that I had told myself like I would never try. Nobody who waits to like try heroin for the first time in their 30s. Like I think I was 33 years old. I had already known how bad like things like alcohol could be.
You'd probably already seen friends die from it or something.
Yeah,
sure.
Literally watched them die.
Yeah.
But I was in such a bad, low place at that time.
Was it because you weren't getting the satisfaction out of music?
I was playing like 150 to 175 blues gigs like a year at that point. So I mean, I was needing, I didn't want to completely cut myself off from music, but I also wanted to try a different kind of music.
Just get outside of your scene.
Right. So
and that was depressing.
It was.
Were you playing with good musicians?
I was playing with phenomenal musicians. Not necessarily night after night, but really, really inspired, phenomenal musicians. But I was, it wasn't the answer to my like inner sort of like, how am I going to develop, how am I going to get this like love for creativity back? I mean, the blues is, it can be a really great and creative thing for the guitar player or the singer, but for the drummer, it's like, you're really just like your job and your only job, and this shouldn't be like, you shouldn't stray from this for even a second, is holding it down.
Yeah.
So I think I became like a way, way better drummer time-wise by playing all these blues gigs, but it wasn't doing much for my will to create and make new stuff. It was actually kind of like almost, for me, it wouldn't be this way for everyone, but for me it was kind of like stifling. And I just decided to try some dumb shit that like.
So what else did you do? So you started smoking dope, or?
I was snorting it. I've never injected anything ever. I've always been like, I just feel like that's as bad as the shit as I was doing. I felt like that was like a whole new level of like ridiculousness. So somehow managed to.
What did it do for you?
Just helped me forget. Maybe.
What did you want to forget?
I wanted to forget about how.
I mean, were you still in a lot of pain over your mother's death at that point?
I'll never not be in a lot of pain over that.
Yeah.
I think. But I think that it would be foolish to say that that's what got me into it,
Right.
or anything like that, or
Okay.
or kept me underwater like that. It was definitely my own, just bad decision making. My ability to make bad decisions was at an all-time high around that time.
It is interesting. I mean,
08, 2007, 2008.
It is interesting, like, how your parents reconsidered, oh, maybe we got him started too early, because you found this passion at such an early age, and like you never had to cope with like not having that in the way that most people do.
Right. Yeah.
Where most people are like, oh, well, sometimes I just don't get an ecstatic feeling from doing this thing that I love.
Yeah.
Like lots of other people are just willing to find joy or like they have to learn how to find joy in other ways. When you always have that as your fallback, and then all of a sudden that pillar gets knocked out for whatever reason for a while, it must have just been really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, for sure.
When was the last time you used?
Be 2010, like November 2010, which probably on the flight, just before the flight coming here.
And have you been tempted to go back to it at any point?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
but
okay.
And
you haven't.
And I haven't, but I also, when I came to California, I sort of did this thing called, like, I guess they call it like, basically like
Scientology?
Yeah. They call it rehabilitation by relocation.
Right.
Because
I think that's what lots of people come to California to do.
Yeah, which, I mean, it blows my mind, but like, I didn't know anyone here when I came to do that. So like, or I knew that this would be an okay place for me to come, because most people I told, hey, I'm going to go to LA to clean up. They're like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? That's not the place you go to clean up. Like, that's the place you go to like get back into like whatever the terrible things you're doing. But and
then you joined a band with some junkies too.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's true. It's true, but they're everywhere, man. I mean, like,
you went and joined a band that was known for having junkies in it.
Oh, which way are we talking about?
Weren't you playing with the
like Jonestown?
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Something? Yeah, I started playing with one of those goofs, and that actually, I was pretty tempted to like.
Yeah,
that was one of the times where I was like pretty tempted to get back into it. So.
Was he using in front of you?
No.
Okay.
Because that's even now, like, that's still everyone's like. That's the dirty secret that nobody wants anyone else to know. You should never, like, even if it's people you're playing with and you're supposedly like best friends and close with, like, you never talk about that, and like you never do that in front of one another, especially if it's someone that's like recovering, like myself. But it definitely made me like rethink shit. And I definitely like am happy that I came here to like get cleaned up, because it was either do that or tell my family what was going on at the time, which seemed like an impossibility. Like, I had to come here to get myself fixed before I could tell my family what was going on. But I waited to tell my family for a really long time, and then didn't realize that was like this thing that was like starting to really like weigh on me, and I didn't know why, and I felt like, aimless, after being here for a year. But then I realized that it's because that I've been keeping this secret, and I had to tell my family about it finally. And I also was suffering pretty greatly from like the after effects of it. People say, oh, like, it takes like, weeks before like you get over the like illness feeling and cold sweats and withdrawal feelings. But like, it took me about a year. Like, it took me a year before, and that's even before I realized what it had done sort of to me psychologically. Like, I think I really like.
What did it do?
I think it messed my brain up. Like,
do you feel like you've kind of fully recovered or not?
Yeah, I feel like I fully recovered now, but I think I didn't realize how much like your brain actually can suffer from doing that sort of stuff. Like, where you're just like, undoing wires in your brain, and you need to like do stuff to try and like kind of help you. Like, I was having unexplained fits of like rage, crazy fits of rage, where like I felt like for that first year after stopping doing heroin, that I was like a prisoner who had just got out of prison, who was in prison for 15 years and like couldn't assimilate to like the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Like that's what I felt like. I felt like I couldn't get a job. Like I can't talk to people. I can't relate. Like I felt like I was too off the grid for a while or something like that. And it would cause me to get really angry and like be frustrated, and I didn't know why. So I wound up seeing like a psychiatrist and like probably getting on medication that doesn't necessarily like, isn't the best, but like I needed something to calm myself down. So I was like taking
like anti-anxiety
stuff, but like lithium too, because I was like hurting myself. I was like having these rage outbursts that like I'd wind up hurting myself.
Like what? Like slamming yourself into shit?
Punching things, punching holes through things, stomping on things, and just all sorts of terrible thoughts, suicidal thoughts, stuff like that too.
So tell me, where are you at right now?
I mean, where I'm at right now, I think is like a semi-healthy balance of like, obviously like no hard drugs, but like I'm not gonna say that you shouldn't smoke weed or you shouldn't do this,
but I'm asking like, where are you at? Like, how do you feel on a day-to-day basis? Do you still have rage sometimes?
No.
Like when your band broke up, did you feel like you were losing control, or did you feel like I can handle this?
I feel like since all the things that I put myself through and then the sort of like steps to rehabilitate myself I had taken after have helped me greatly in like dealing with stuff, particularly things like, this last band dissolving, where it's just like, I can't do anything about this and I'm not going to waste the energy getting upset about it. I'm just going to try and take what I could from it, and move on to the next thing and hope that, don't make these same decisions or same mistakes again, or like notice the signs, the telltale signs of something that's not going to work out,
What are your goals for yourself, creatively and personally?
I want to get more into production, post-production, studio stuff, engineering, mixing, getting really, really head deep into Logic right now. I just got Logic for the first time after working on GarageBand for the past 4 years or something like that, which sounds like some kiddie bullshit, but it's opened up a whole new world for me. It's kind of reminded me why I got into engineering in the first place. Been recording bands in my house in Asheville, and really, really happy with the results. Have amassed a semi-decent microphone collection, and I'm kind of getting more into that world. I'm not really into the idea of playing in a band anymore. I mean, I'm 41, and that's not the reason why. I'm just telling you I'm 41. But,
right. What about are you in a relationship right now?
No. Mm-mm.
Is that something that's important to you? Do you want to have a family someday or something?
I wouldn't mind having a family someday, but I would say that it's more important to me right now to have it so the relationships that I do have with people are just really, really healthy ones.
Yeah.
And if it's a girlfriend, that's great. If it's just close friends and even closer, getting back to family type stuff, that's awesome too.
Mm-hmm.
That's more important to me, I think, than actual for me right now personally.
Yeah.
Than a family and a girlfriend steady type thing.
Anything else you want to add?
God, I don't know. There's still so much more to say, but I think we covered a lot.
We can do a part 2 when you're dominating.
Only Bernard Purdie gets a part 2, man.
Well, Bernard Purdie's been around a lot longer than you.
Yeah, that's true.
But
well, let's work up to a part 2.
To me, you are on the same scale as in my life. You hold a similar place to Bernard.
Thanks.
So
well, that means an
thank you for
lot,
doing
man.
this, Ryan.
Thank you so much for having me.
The Trap Set is produced by me, Joe Wong, along with Chris Karwowski, who also edits the program. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Trap Set, and visit our website, thetrapset.net, to subscribe to our show for free. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please donate to our show. If you can't afford to donate, please tell a friend and give us a good rating on iTunes. Send your feedback and guest requests to thetrapset@gmail.com.